Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I'm here to talk a little bit about this new film that was announced yesterday at a Disney celebration, Disney 3D. It's the prequel to one of the most famous and the highest grossing Disney movie of all time, The Lion King, which came out in 1994. The story about Mufasa, the dad of Simba, the origin story of Mufasa, and is told from his point of view. So I'm assuming it's 30 years into the future, before the birth of Simba, and it's told from the point of view of not only Mufasa but the narrators of the story will be Timon, Pumbaa, and Rafiki, who is, of course, the sage, the one who is the holy man who christens people the new king. Now, apparently, according to Barry Jenkins, who's going to be the director of the movie, Barry Jenkins, of course, most famous for winning the Oscar in 2016 for Moonlight. Mufasa is not actually of royal origin. He is actually an orphan. So this is a common literary motif. We see this in a lot of um, mythologies, most famously the biblical story of Moses, for example, is one example. Sargon of Akkad, the famous Akkadian conqueror, this is also a motif in his story. This is a motif in popular literature and popular movies like the Broadway play Annie, and even the origin story of in Islam of the Prophet Muhammad, the motif of being an orphan. We see it in Star Wars as well with Anakin Skywalker. So that will be the gist of what will be coming out, and it'll be 30 years to the date of when the actual 1994 movie was released. And it'll be similar animation to and similar graphics to the 2019 version of The Lion King, the live action remake, which was kind of cool. I like seeing that sort of thing. It was cool to bring it to life. I really didn't enjoy some of the changes they made to accommodate, say, Beyonce giving Nala a bigger role just because Beyonce was the voice of it. I don't think that necessarily was necessary at all. But this idea of an origin story, this idea of a prequel, I love the concept of a prequel. And a prequel, I feel like if done right, can give us a lot of context. And one of the questions that we really want answered, not necessarily, well, was Mufasa born into royalty, but one of the questions that we really want answered, I think, from my point of view as a fan of the Lion King, the original, is why is Scar so jealous of Mufasa? Can we go from this angle? Maybe, perhaps, because he already gave it away that Mufasa is not born into royalty. Maybe, perhaps, Scar and Mufasa are not even biological brothers, and Scar is the actual heir to the throne when it comes to biology and genetics. He's the genetic heir to the throne. He's the rightful heir to the throne, as he should be. But Mufasa somehow maneuvers himself to become the heir. We see this kind of motif even again in the Bible. About the Bible is another example. The story of Jacob and Esau. They are both twins. Esau is the firstborn, but through trickery and through machinations, actually, he deceives his father, Isaac. Jacob becomes the inheritor, and it is Jacob's seed, the seed of Jacob, who later becomes Israel, that eventually triumphs in the end. We also see that in Roman mythology with Romulus and Remus. where Remus was supposed to be the rightful heir to the throne of the city of Rome, which would eventually become Rome, but it is inevitably Romulus who triumphs in the end. So maybe that is a case here to be made to make Scar out to be a more sympathetic figure, to help us to understand why Scar does what he does eventually in the original, The Lion King. Um, Seth Rogen will be voicing Timon and Pumbaa. Seth Rogen will be voicing Pumbaa, and Billy Eichhardt, who voiced him in the 2019 version, will be voicing him in this version. Again, another thing I would want answered. Apparently, it's supposed to feature Timon and Pumbaa telling this story to um, a young lion cub. That's supposed to be the setup for it. But one thing I would want to answer too is if that's going to be the case, how the hell do Timon and Pumbaa even know about Mufasa? Because when they encounter Simba in the original movie, it is made out to seem like they're totally ignorant of anything going on in Pride Rock. So if they're totally ignorant of all that is going on in Pride Rock, how the hell do they even know or if they don't even know who Simba is, how the hell do they even know about Mufasa, Scar, or anything? Of course, they're the comic relief. They are, um, what is called the Greek chorus. It is through them that we laugh. It is through them that we experience the hijinks of what is going on. But they flesh out the explanation. They give us an outsider's perspective, kind of like what the Greek chorus used to do when they would provide sort of levity in these Greek tragedies, such as the story of the House of Atreus, for example, um, in the Greek stories. The House of Atreus, of course, Atreus, the father of Agamemnon, who inevitably Agamemnon is the main protagonist on the Greek side, on the Achaean side, that leads the Achaeans into battle to take over Troy. But he is inevitably killed by his own son in the story of Electra, um, his own son and his daughter Electra. So when you had the Greeks during the tragedies of the Greek uh, plays, you would have the Greek chorus in the back to provide some sort of comic relief when all this tragedy is going on. So obviously, Mufasa and the story of the Lion King is a tragedy. It's the breakup of a family, the breakup of a bloodline, if you will. So you have to provide some sort of levity in it, sort of like C3PO and R2D2 do in Star Wars. So they're the comic relief. They are, if you're going to use like a wrestling analogy, say for example, they are like the commentators in wrestling. They tell you what is going on. They help to flesh out the narratives. But how are they connected in the past to Mufasa? I hope they don't do some crazy shit like in the Star Wars prequels where, okay, Darth Vader manufactured C3PO, and then years later, C3PO knows nothing about Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Like, when did C3PO ever interact with Darth Vader? I know it's explained in the lead up to it that his memory was wiped, or the same thing with R2D2. He doesn't know Obi-Wan, and he's been with Obi-Wan this whole time, and Obi-Wan doesn't even remember um, owning a droid. It was the explanation was really really stupid in Star Wars. So hopefully it's not as stupid in this Mufasa. Yeah, but the story I was looking for, that I was talking about, the death of Agamemnon at the hands of daughter, um, his daughter. I mean, excuse me, the death of Agamemnon at the hands of his wife, um, and the death of her Clytemnestra at the hands of um, uh, Electra and Orestes is the Oresteia. But even in something like the Oresteia or something like even the Trojan War, which it essentially is a tragedy too, the fall of an entire civilization at the hands of another for the sake of this woman, Helen of Troy, wife of Menelaus, the brother of Agamemnon. Um, who is kidnapped by the Trojan Paris, and inevitably the Achaeans have to go into Troy and destroy Troy. It's still brought about by levity from this Greek chorus. So my point is that the Greek chorus is like Timon and Pumbaa in a way, providing us levity and providing us laughs. But we'll see what this Mufasa movie offers in terms, and I hope there's no LGBT subplot either. You know what I mean? Not that I'm against LGBT ism in movies, LGBT representation in movies, but I think that some people might be fearing that going to Barry Jenkins, of course, Barry Jenkins, known for Moonlight. Moonlight is, of course, a very tragic story, a very good story about the kid, the three stages of the kid's life. Trevante Rhodes playing the older stage of the kid, Barry Sanders playing the middle stage, and the younger stage played by Alex Howell of this one kid and how he struggles with his sexuality. You know what I mean? But that is a story, and Mahershala Ali as his mentor. That's a story to be told in that context of a kid growing up in Liberty City. Um, his name is Sharon. Growing up in Liberty City, in the world of the inner city, trapped and struggling with his sexuality. But I don't think interjecting something like that into this movie makes any sense. I mean, maybe they could. I mean, Scar was always a foppish type lion, a feminine type lion, and he had many feminine characteristics. So if they wanted to do something like that, they could. But I don't know. It angered people, a lot of people, with Buzz Lightyear, and that was just two women kissing. So putting that in this movie, would cause a lot of unnecessary backlash and would make people not want to go see this movie. So, I mean, they could scale it back a little bit in terms of that. You know what I mean? And that's my only really concern. Like, why would they go to Barry Jenkins? Not necessarily that Barry Jenkins could only do that, but uh, doing that exclusively, just focusing on just that, you don't want to be pigeonholed into just that either. So, anyway, peace, guys. Let me know what you guys think, about this 2024 supposed release, and also tell us a little bit about the origins of the hyenas versus the lions. Why the hyenas and the lions are so antagonistic to each other without just a regular old biological answer. Well, lions are superior on the food chain. No, but how did it become that? They present them as two different entities. In fact, the hyenas are presented as rather Nazi-like in that one scene where they're actually goose stepping when Scar becomes their leader and he takes over. So tell us a little bit about the origins of that. Tell us a little bit about the origins of the universe itself. Help to world build. That's what I think prequels should do. That's what prequels are supposed to be. That's what the Star Wars prequels, in my opinion, were so good at. In a sense, they were about world building. They helped establish the rules of the universe. Maybe the details weren't all there. Like I said, well, how does R2 know Obi-Wan? Or how does C3PO? How come C3PO doesn't even remember his maker? I mean, yes, his memory was wiped clean. Again, that's the explanation. But how come he doesn't have an inkling, at least a little bit, that Anakin might be his maker or anything. And a lot of stuff, a lot of little bits and pieces don't really necessarily make sense. But overall, George Lucas was giving us a picture of this world, this universe. So Disney's Mufasa could do that too. They could take us to this world, what this world is like, why these animals have these animosities that these animals have. Um, and just tell us a little bit about the world that they are building. Peace. Love you guys.